We know it's been a while since our 5,000 subscriber Q&A, and while we're not quite at 13,000 subscribers yet, we thought now's the time. So we're going to answer the questions that you submitted to our Facebook and our Twitter over the last few weeks.
The first set of questions is kind of about us personally. So how did you two meet?
Do we want to answer that?
It's not a national secret. We actually met at a Firefly meetup group here in Atlanta. We just kind of ran into each other and realized we had a lot in common.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it, and I knew she'd be trouble when I saw her.
How did RetroBlasting come to be?
RetroBlasting came to be because Melinda invented it. What happened was I was watching some YouTube videos about Voltron toys. As you know from the videos we've done, I'm a huge Voltron fan. And I wasn't happy with the content that I was seeing. I was very frustrated. And Melinda was watching over my shoulder, and she said, well, don't you have that toy? And I said, yeah, it's from when I was a kid. It's over there in the display case. And she said, well, yours is in much better condition than that one. I said, yeah, I've got everything. She said, well, you have a video and film background. You know all of this stuff. You should do a video. You could do better than that.
And interestingly, at that Firefly meetup group where we met, one of the fun things that people used to love to get Michael to do was go on this big rant about the Thundercats. So that's actually where our first video came from. Honestly, it was people who are fans of Thundercats, and they would say, hey, Michael, do the Thundercats thing. And they would laugh. So we had no idea when we first started the channel that it was going to incite so much ire from Thundercats fans, because it was Thundercats fans that we knew in real life who actually constantly requested this at parties and at various gatherings at our house and things like that. So the next question is, what are your day jobs?
You want to go first?
Sure. I work at a biotech company here in Atlanta, and I manage all of the clinical research, which is weird because I have a couple other degrees in completely different areas like art and forensic anthropology. Originally, I was going to be sort of a combo of, if you see the show Bones, I'm kind of like Bones meets Angela. So I was kind of trying to combine the art and anthropology thing. But so that's my background, and then I'm also a nurse. So now I do the clinical research thing.
I do internal communications for a corporation here in Atlanta. And then before that, I was actually a journalist. I worked for a daily newspaper, and I did the whole Clark Kent thing at the desk. Before that, I actually worked in Los Angeles for a few years doing script reading and script coverage for some producers at Miramax.
Which all come into play pretty nicely with what we do now. My art background is very helpful. My anthropology background and archaeology and the way to analyze that kind of stuff historically is very useful. I did some documentary filmmaking when I was in grad school for anthropology. And so you went to film school, so all of those things come into play with everything that we do. Right,
yeah, the film school background combined with the journalism background is one of the reasons that you get the videos you get from me.
So this one is for DV. They want to know, how did you lose your arms? Lots of people want to know, how did you lose your arms?
I don't like talking about it.
Okay. Do you get upset whenever Michael or Melinda ask you to lend a hand around the house? It's not like it's costing you an arm or a leg. This next question is, do you like any sports teams? What is Kirby's backstory? Actually, we have two cats, Kirby and Sasha. Michael has a lot of really severe cat allergies, and so we weren't originally thinking that we would be able to have cats, but I do love them a lot. And so quite selflessly, he did some research and found that there is a breed of cat, the Norwegian forest cat, that has a lower dander level. And when we went to the breeder's home where we got them, he had no reaction at all. So that is how they came to be with us. They have very different personalities, And so Sasha is a little less sociable, and that's why she's not normally on camera. So DV, what is your relationship with Kirby? Are you on good terms, or is he just one more annoyance?
He certainly likes me a lot more than I like him.
Okay, Michael, how did you get the DeLorean, and how is the restoration coming along?
I got the DeLorean in 2009. I got it a few months before I met Melinda. And I found one on an ad on Hemmings, and it was in a classic car gallery on consignment all the way up in Connecticut, and we live in Georgia. So I called the guy up. It was, except for the door pulls, it was everything that the Back to the Future car was, because DeLoreans actually have subtle differences. And I was like, great, I'd love to, purchase it. And he was like, well, I assure you that it is the best DeLorean I've ever seen. It had only 2,300 original miles on it. And I couldn't even afford to trailer it. So I paid for a one-way ticket up to New York based on their assurance. Bought the car sight unseen over the phone. Scraped together some money rapidly, sold another car, and then flew up there and took possession of it and drove it home over a 4-day road trip on back roads from the northeast of America to the south. And it was crazy. As far as the restoration is going, it's not really a restoration so much as it just is maintenance that's overdue. The car doesn't really need restoration, thank goodness. It just needs some TLC right now. But it's going fine. The car cranks. We just have a few other things to do.
This is another question for DV. If you had the opportunity to make some of Michael's prized possessions broken, I guess because you're broken, get that? What pieces would you break?
What?
His prized possession is his DeLorean, and it is already broken.
This question comes from one of our UK fans, and he wants to know if we have any plans to visit the UK anytime soon.
Well, I grew up in the UK. I spent my adolescence in Weybridge in Surrey. It was the best time of my life as a child. And I would love to go back. I think about Britain every day. I wanted to be back actually a month ago for the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, but I couldn't get everything together to make that scheduling happen. I really regret that. But I want to go back soon. We have a number of friends there that we'd like to see.
We hope that we're going to be able to make it next year, but we're just going to have to wait and see what our schedule looks like.
Yeah.
Another question for Vader. Do you think Disney is a better custodian of the Star Wars legacy than Lucasfilm?
No one owns Darth Vader.
This next question asks, do you both write videos, and how do you decide who does what?
You can take that if you want.
We do both write videos. Just kind of usually depends on who is most passionate about the property that we're discussing. I'm a little less comfortable in front of the camera than Michael, and I tend to do a lot more, like I said in the last Q&A, I do a lot more behind the scenes type of stuff, but I've gotten a lot of requests that I do some more videos, so I'm going to try. That's my goal in 2016, to push through my camera fright that I have and just go ahead and do that. So post a comment below if you want me to do a video. How long do various video types like restorations or feature projects take from idea to completion?
When it comes to restorations, the actual filming of the restoration doesn't take terribly long, assuming we don't run into snags. But certain restorations are more complex than others. So, for example, the R5D4 that we just recently did, that, despite being a tiny figure, that took quite a few months to do. And then when we actually did the physical work, it took a few days because we had to let things dry and prep and cure. That's also assuming that you have all the parts you need. Sometimes we get held up waiting for parts. Then there are shorter videos that we do, but they can be backbreaking. So for example, the video we did about the Arco MCB-1 motorized vehicle,
Right.
that ended up being like a 3.5 minute video, but it took us all day of shooting and then all day the next day of editing to get that ready. The features are almost unpredictable. So You have the research. And so say you're researching a show that has 13 episodes from a Saturday morning, then you don't have to watch as much. Now imagine if you had a show like 65 episodes. Now imagine if you had a show like Robotech that had 3 50-episode shows strung together.
Both Japanese and English that we watch all
Right.
of it. Like,
Right.
we literally watch all the episodes. Usually we watch one thing while we're writing and filming another thing.
Right.
And making notes and doing all of that. The filming, we have to film the on-camera stuff. We film voiceover. We pull footage from the video itself. And then the editing process for cartoon videos. Actually, the cartoons and toy videos takes a pretty long period of time. And then the toy videos are always the hardest. The part 2 of whatever feature video we're doing, like a great example of this is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
Yeah.
toy, like the part 2 of
Part
that
2.
the one that we did recently.
Yeah.
It took like 3 to 4 weeks of filming. And a lot of those shots, the ones where you see toys appearing in group shots, like three new toys and then 5 more toys, those take forever. You're filming them in reverse. You start with all the toys on the table, you take a few off, you film a little bit more, you take a few off. And if
Right.
you mess something up along the way, if you forget something, you have to start all the way over. How do you decide what you will make a video on?
It has to do with 2 things. It has to do with what I have available. My collection is ever expanding. The RetroBlasting archive is ever expanding. And then also how quickly I can wrap my head around something. So, for example, if I've already watched something from when I was a kid and I have a grasp of it already, I still watch all the episodes, but it comes back to me faster and I can analyze more quickly.
I think the other thing that we try to do is we want to make sure we actually have something to say. I notice a lot of times with the current craze for nostalgia, it can turn into the Chris Farley show. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's basically, remember that time? Remember the Thundercats? That was awesome. And that's it. That's as far as it goes. It's just saying the thing and saying that it's awesome. So, I think that we have to sort of take it to that next level and say, okay, why did this resonate with all of us? And, what is the lasting impression that it leaves you with? And, what was great about it then? What was kind of weird about it then? What doesn't hold up over time? And that's kind of what I think our approach is.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Melinda has seen me many times when I get excited about doing a particular feature. It's because I will have been driving home or sitting there on a weekend, and suddenly, in my random jumble of thoughts, suddenly I think about something about that particular show or that particular toy, and I'm like, holy crap, there it is, the hook. That's what this thing is saying to me. We need to analyze and explore this, and that kind of drives me towards those videos.
How do you decide what to post on social media? How does anyone decide what to post on social media?
Sometimes it's about what's current.
Yes.
So sometimes if there's news of, some reboot or something going on, or sometimes if it's something we just saw the night before. Sometimes it's just me generating an idea randomly for the Facebook page anyway. Melinda has her own strategy with Twitter. And then we just look for opportunities. I don't know. It's random, really.
It's kind of random. I think that we have a great network of folks, particularly on Facebook, who are extremely supportive and, just awesome all the way around. A lot of times earlier on in this endeavor, we would come home from a horrible day. You have a terrible day at work and a horrible commute and you're exhausted and you open up your computer when you get home and all you get is these horrible comments from people that are just like the worst thing. If you want to really drop your self-esteem, start a YouTube channel. It doesn't matter what you put on there. Somebody's going to be hateful and horrible and just say the worst things that you've ever thought about yourself to you. So you see that and you're like, God, why am I doing this to myself? Why? But when we go on our Facebook page, it's the exact opposite. It's like the most supportive, awesome people that we wish that we could hang out with you guys in person. Just a great group of folks.
Yeah, absolutely. There really is a strong community on the Facebook. That community is growing on our Twitter as well. It's growing on our Instagram. It's really nice to see that.
How do you deal with negative comments?
Well, Melinda often tells me not to engage negative comments, and then 60% of the time I end up engaging in the negative comments.
It's hard not to. It's so hard not to.
Yeah, I've effectively changed one person's mind in the 3.5 years that we've done this. I've changed one person's mind, not about my opinion, but
Right.
changed their mind about spewing hateful things to somebody they don't know.
Right.
That's the one and only time. So I guess the best strategy is not to engage. I just have to learn to do that more often.
How do you answer the idea that you just need to grow up and that toys and cartoons are just dumb and they're for little kids?
I don't think that cartoons and toy lines are above scrutiny. That doesn't mean that we dislike them. If we disliked the 80s and we disliked cartoons and toys, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Let's stop right now.
Yeah, really. I really believe that cartoons, when they're described that way, like, oh, it's just a kid's cartoon, you're giving it too much thought. I think that's insulting to the material. I
think it's insulting to kids.
Oh, yeah. I mean, children's programming, I think, should be given more scrutiny. If I was going to have to choose between a pile of cartoons that would get critiqued versus a pile of films for adults, I would choose the stuff that was for kids, because to me, that stuff has the lasting impact. That's why we're still talking about it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are there any plans for RetroBlasting to have a dedicated podcast?
No. When you're running a web channel like this that requires this much work, you don't have time to also develop a weekly podcast when you're also working 50-hour-a-week jobs.
Right.
It's just not doable.
The next question is, where can I get a t-shirt? Well, the last time that we had one of these Q&As, I didn't have an answer, but now I do. We have an online store at Zazzle currently, and we've got t-shirts and hats and cups and buttons and all kinds of fun stuff if you are just dying to support RetroBlasting. Would you consider making RetroBlasting a weekly televised series?
Yes, I would. I would love for RetroBlasting to break out of YouTube and become a televised series. If we were approached to do a show where we could focus on the nostalgia aspect of toys and not the perceived money value of toys, then we'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think that kind of comes back to there's two kinds of collectors, really. There's people who collect like we do for nostalgia, for historical preservation purposes, and things like that. And then there are people who, on some level or another, are thinking of the financial gain that they can either now or in the future make on flipping or reselling this toy.